Revelation from someone. Korea's latest psychological thriller just dropped on Netflix, and it's terrifying in all the right ways. South Korean directors have done it again. This new film doesn't just strip human depravity bare, it smashes our illusions about faith with brutal force. You'll walk away questioning everything about everyday life. Those tiny, overlooked details, they're suddenly bone-chilling. The story hooks you from the very first second and doesn't let go. It all begins on a stormy morning. A young woman named Ayeon realizes someone's following her. The man looks terrifying, and out of instinct, she rushes into a nearby church, hoping that a public place will shake him off. But to her horror, he walks right in behind her. The choir sings cheerfully, but Ayeon is all nerves. As soon as the hymn ends, she grabs her friend, ready to flee, but the man follows. Just then, Min-chan, the church's lead pastor, steps in and blocks the stranger's path. Noticing the man's unfamiliar face, Min-chan invites him to his office. Before the guy can even react, Min-chan hands him a church robe, trying to convert him on the spot because he's desperate to meet this month's recruitment quota. The man says his name is Yeonrae and insists he was just passing by. But Min-chan doesn't care. He snaps a photo of Yeonrae, prints it, and adds him to the church records anyway. Yeonrae is clearly annoyed. Then Min-chan gets a call, some kind of family drama, and steps out. When he comes back, Yeonrae is ready to leave, claiming he filled out the form. Trying to be extra friendly, Min-chan even kneels down to help him put on his shoes. But then shock. Around Yeonrae's ankle is an electronic shackle. He just got out of prison. Both men freeze.
교회는 죄인들이 오는 곳입니다.
Still, Min-chan tells himself he needs that new member, but disappointment hits hard when he sees the form was never filled. Yet the wheel of fate is already in motion, and Min-chan is about to be dragged into a nightmare. Outside the church, Yeonrae is being watched. Detective Yeon-hee is glaring at him, seething with emotion. Unbeknownst to Yeonrae, she had started following him before he even stepped into the church. Clearly, these two share a messy past. As their eyes meet, Yeon-hee's phone rings. It's her dad. She's forced to pause her surveillance for a family dinner, not knowing this decision will haunt her. Meanwhile, Min-chan's wife, Lee Si-yeon, tells him she has a school reunion that evening and reminds him to pick up their son. On the drive home, they notice a newly built church under construction. When Lee sees the name of the lead pastor, Father Marco, she lights up. He's an old friend. She assumes Min-chan might be offered a leadership role there. It could change their lives. Min-chan rushes to see Marco, lying that he's already brought in a promising new member. But Marco sees right through him. Worse still, Marco already has someone in mind, his protege and son, Young Hwan-soo. Crushed, Min-chan turns to leave, but runs into Hwan-soo himself. To his surprise, Hwan-soo says he doesn't want the position. He believes Min-chan is the right man for the job. Hope rekindled, Min-chan goes back to his church and prays fervently, begging God to change Marco's mind and give him a sign. Just as he finishes his prayer, his phone rings. It's Lee Si-yeon. Furious, he forgot to pick up their son. Worse yet, eyewitnesses say the boy was taken by an unknown man. Panicked, Min-chan tells Lee to call the police, then glances down and sees Yeonrae's photo on the desk. Rain has smeared the ink, turning the image into something grotesque. Beside it, a photo of Min-chan's son. A horrifying thought hits him. Did Yeonrae take his son to get revenge? Min-chan races online. Turns out Yeonrae was arrested for a sex crime, and his records are public. With trembling hands, Min-chan finds his address and rushes out. At the house, he sees Yeonrae calmly loading shovels and tools into his car. Chills run down his spine. He dials 911. Just as Min-chan's panic peaks, his phone dies. He sees Yeonrae's car pulling away and decides he'll follow him alone. But he underestimated Yeonrae's instincts. High in the mountains, Min-chan loses sight of the road. Then, suddenly Yeonrae's car appears in his rearview mirror. Min-chan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Yeonrae turned around and cut straight to the point. "Why are you following me?" Just then, Min-chan's phone finally powered back on. Yeonrae glanced at the lock screen photo, a picture of Min-chan with his son, and swallowed hard. He tried to walk away as if nothing had happened. That only deepened Min-chan's suspicion. Ignoring any hope of police help, he yanked open the van doors to search, but his son was nowhere inside. Min-chan didn't believe it. He suddenly lifted Yeonrae's pant leg no ankle monitor. The man had removed it. That sealed it for Min-chan. Something was seriously wrong. Yeonrae stared at him, fury boiling in his eyes. Sensing danger, Min-chan tried to shut the van door, but Yeonrae slammed it back open. A brutal fight broke out. Thin and outmatched, Min-chan was quickly overwhelmed, but then he remembered church robes have hoods. Seeing Yang Rui lying motionless on the ground, he hurried to call the police. Before he could, Lee Si-yeon's number popped up. She told him the truth. Their son had gone to a friend's house. The friend's dad just forgot to notify them. This filled Min-chan with overwhelming regret. Before he could process his guilt, a lightning bolt lit up the sky and Min-chan saw a face. Taking it as a heavenly command, he stripped Yang Rui of his robe and tossed him off a cliff. Then, he fled. The next day, the police received two separate reports, one from Min-chan about a possible kidnapping, the other from the family of Ayoung, the girl from the church. She had mysteriously vanished. Detective Yun-hee was shaken. Both cases were linked to her. She'd been watching Yang Rui ever since his release. Years ago, her younger sister moved out and was kidnapped by Yang Rui. To avoid exposure, Yang Rui had forced her sister to call Yun-hee, trying to pretend everything was normal. She gave no details, hoping her smart older sister would pick up on the clues. But Yun-hee didn't, and her sister was subjected to long-term abuse. Eventually, she escaped. But what truly broke her was the court's ruling. A psychiatrist defended Yang Rui, citing severe childhood abuse by his stepfather. His skull was deformed. He was mentally ill. They argued, with treatment, he could be rehabilitated.
왜 저런 사람한테 이유를 만들어주냐고요? 웃어?
퇴장시키세요.
웃어?
빨리 퇴장시켜요.
나가시고 와! 저 새끼는 악마야! 저 새끼는 악마라고! 지금 대체 누구 편을 드는 거야? 이거 너라고!
Yun-hee couldn't accept that, but the doctor insisted. Yang Rui wasn't a monster, just a patient. In the end, Yang Rui got a light sentence. Her sister lost all hope. One day, she jumped to her death. Since then, Yun-hee had been haunted literally. She kept hearing her sister's voice, blaming her, begging her. That's why she tailed Yang Rui after his release. To stop another tragedy, she even spoke briefly to Ayoung outside the church. Now Ayoung had vanished. Her gut screamed. Yang Rui did it again. And then, the police made a grisly discovery. Behind the wardrobe in Yang Rui's home, they found a painting twisted and nightmarish. A devil's face. In its gaping mouth tiny, ghostly figures of children. The image sent chills down every spine in the room. Meanwhile, Min-chan was hiding in the church, researching the legal penalties for accidental manslaughter. As he began to pray, Yun-hee and her team burst in. Min-chan hurriedly explained it was all a misunderstanding. His son was safe at home. He was calm, almost too calm, but Yun-hee's sharp eyes caught something, a stained robe draped over a chair, and in the shoe rack a pair of muddy leather shoes. After they left, Min-chan panicked even more. Guilt was eating him alive. He decided to confess everything to Father Marco, but before he could send the message, Marco contacted him, asking for a meeting. To Min-chan's surprise, Marco began confessing his sins. Turns out, his golden boy son, Young Hwan-soo, had just been caught in a scandal. To cover it up, Marco decided to send his son abroad, leaving the new church to Min-chan. Just like that, Min-chan got what he always wanted.
주님의 뜻이 그렇다고 하시니 우리야 다 그분 뜻에 따라 사는 사람들 아니냐. 민찬아, 따르겠습니다.
Soon after, Ayoung's mother came to Min-chan, begging him to help find her daughter. To comfort her, Min-chan invited her to join a prayer service that night. Before she could answer, the police called. A hiker had found Yang Rui's vehicle, abandoned in the mountains. Despite a full-scale search, no body was found. Then Min-chan said something weird again, which made Yun-hee start suspecting him all over again.
시신도 못 찾았습니까?
시신이면은 우리 아영이가
His tone, his expression, something was off. After leaving the scene, Min-chan rushed to meet Lee Si-yeon. The evening prayer meeting was about to start. They needed to greet the congregation, but when they arrived at a nearby care center, a nurse stopped them. "Where's the ambulance you called?" Turns out, earlier that morning, a man covered in blood had begged them for help. It was obvious he'd crawled out from the back mountain. He remembered seeing a wrecked ambulance earlier on the way there. The nurse's description of the man's build sent a chill down his spine. He made an excuse to slip away and crept upstairs to the second floor. Room by room, he searched until he found what he feared most. Yang Rui wasn't dead after all. When Min-chan saw him muttering to himself, he bent down to listen more closely. But before he could catch his breath, a sudden flash of light hit him, and up in the sky, an angel appeared. Min-chan was now completely convinced this unbelievable phenomenon had to be another sign from God. Without hesitation, he lifted Yang-rae into a wheelchair, draped a curtain over him, and wheeled him away. Just as the rescue team arrived, they barely missed crossing paths with Min-chan. Soon after, the police arrived too, only to find out the asylum's surveillance system had long since stopped working. Right then, an old man nearby suddenly spoke up. He claimed he saw who took Yang-rae, but when everyone eagerly awaited the answer, he simply said it was God because only God would take away a sinner. With no solid leads, Yun-hee and the others had no choice but to leave. But just before she left, Yun-hee noticed Pastor Lee Si-young and his church members praying nearby. Sensing something suspicious, she asked for the full list of church members just in case. Meanwhile, Min-chan had brought Yang-rae to an abandoned building. Yang-rae, still confused, demanded to know what was going on, but Min-chan insisted that everything he was doing was by divine instruction. Yang-rae found that laughable, but knowing his life was on the line, he made a bold move. He confessed everything.
날 죽이면 그 여자애 절대 못 찾아. 당신 내 교회 다니는 여자애.
Caught off guard by the sudden confession, Min-chan was thrown into a panic. Yang-rae threatened him he'd better call the police, or else. But after a moment of hesitation, Min-chan grabbed a metal rod and unleashed a violent beating on Yang-rae, demanding to know where the others were. Yang-rae, of course, didn't break. Suddenly, Yang-rae started singing a hymn, and in that moment, something clicked in Min-chan's mind. He taped Yang-rae's mouth shut and locked him in a storeroom. Then he jumped in the car and rushed to church. He still had a prayer meeting to lead. As he led his congregation into the church, Yun-hee stepped out of a nearby car. From the nurses' list, she had found that all those praying women were members of Min-chan's church. Thinking back to what she'd seen earlier, Min-chan's strange behavior at the scene, Yun-hee zeroed in on him as the prime suspect. Noticing some strange substance on the church van's tires, Yun-hee gave it a quick taste, just enough to confirm her hunch. She searched nearby and located a mulberry field. Then, using map coordinates, she tracked down the abandoned building. The clear tire tracks on the ground confirmed her suspicion. After searching thoroughly, she finally found Yang-rae locked in the warehouse. But just as she reached for her phone to call for help, a familiar voice echoed in her ear. It was her sister's, begging her to kill that monster in front of her. Sensing that Yun-hee might lose control, Yang-rae made another confession. He had kidnapped Aeon. That froze Yun-hee. She didn't know what to do anymore. But before she could make a decision, when Yun-hee came to, she realized she was tied to a chair. Min-chan had gotten to her too. Trying to reason with him, Yun-hee told him Aeon was still alive. But Min-chan wasn't buying it. He was convinced Aeon was already dead. Why else would God keep telling him to punish Yang-rae? With Yun-hee unexpectedly showing up, he had to change his plan. He'd fake both their deaths. Maybe realizing there was no way out, Yang-rae started singing a hymn again. Min-chan snapped. He'd had enough. This game needed to end. As Min-chan tightened his grip on Yun-hee's throat, Yang-rae kicked a saw across the floor because, after all, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Yun-hee managed to free herself and quickly cuffed Min-chan to a railing. Yang-rae watched everything with a twisted grin of satisfaction, but just seconds later, though Yun-hee grabbed him in time, fate was already sealed. Some things can't be undone.
왜 눈박이가 잡아먹었어? 왜 눈박이가?
With Aeon's location still unknown, Yun-hee couldn't accept the outcome. Even under police questioning, Min-chan kept saying the same thing. He was only following God's orders when he punished Yang-rae. Just when everyone had hit a wall, a psychologist reached out to Yun-hee. Her earlier outburst had rattled his conscience. After digging deeper, the psychologist discovered a disturbing pattern. Whenever Yang-rae was abused by his stepfather, his mother would stand outside the door singing hymns. That trauma triggered a mental condition, delusional misidentification. Yang-rae had begun to assign twisted meaning to unrelated things, justifying his crimes in his mind. And that one-eyed monster he mentioned before dying? If it wasn't his stepfather, it might have been Yang-rae himself, his own inner demon. The psychologist believed Yang-rae's crimes were triggered by a visual switch, something that brought the trauma flooding back. Just as Yun-hee was running out of leads, her father called. He told her their new house was ready for interior work. There were a lot of renovations happening in the area. But when Yun-hee saw the pictures, she froze. The window designs were exactly like the ones in Young-rae's childhood drawings. Then it hit her late sister's old apartment had the same style of window. That meant the trigger for Young-rae's breakdown was the window and that Aeong might be held in a house with the same design. With help from her colleagues, Yun-hee pinpointed the location. The place was set for demolition, so she raced over, barely arriving in time. When she pushed open the door, Aeong saw a flicker of hope at last. Her sister's death couldn't be undone. But Yun-hee had finally redeemed herself. In the final scene, Yun-hee visits Min-chan in prison. Ironically, even after learning that Aeong was alive, he still refused to believe it. But back in his cell, Min-chan noticed something in the corner of his face. Maybe. He soaked a towel and began scrubbing the wall. Tears rolled down his cheeks as the image blurred, and his face contorted in agony. His once unwavering faith had finally shattered into pieces.